Shalom, dear Holocaust survivors, Your Excellencies, dear patrons, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to welcome you to this year's commemoration ceremony on the occasion of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day 2024. Thank you all for being with us. We extend our special appreciation to all of you who contributed to this event. Under the IRA chairmanship of Croatia, and together with 35 embassies here in Bern, we convened, discussed, and identified an important theme for this year's memorial ceremony. The future of Holocaust remembrance, testimonies, sites, and memorials in the 21st century. Additionally, the network of IRA embassies here in Bern decided to produce a unique booklet presenting various national projects, institutes, memorial sites, and perspectives that promote Holocaust remembrance in each country. You are welcome to take a booklet with you at the end of the ceremony. They will be placed outside the hall. This initiative was done in close collaboration with the Gamaral Foundation. Thank you, Ms. Anita Winter, for all your invaluable assistance and generosity. This evening we have distinguished speakers sharing different perspectives, experiences, and methods to ensure the future of Holocaust remembrance for generations to come. I would like to invite you to stand as we hold a minute of silence to honor the memory of the victims of the Shoah. Thank you. We begin with a prayer, remembering the victims of the Shoah. El Maleh Rachamim, read by Rabbi Joshua Arens of the Jewish community of Bern.
Ich würde Sie bitten, aufzustehen. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המלצה מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים ותארים כסוהר רקיע מסעירים, את כל הנשמות של 6 ביליוני היהודים, חללי השואה באירופה, שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו ושנספו על קידוש השם. באושוויץ, ברגן-בלזן, מיידנק, טרבלינקה, ובשאר מחנות השמדה, ברור שכל הקהל מתפלל לעילוי נשמותיהם, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בשאת כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור מצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, ועמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים, ונאמר אמן.
The first speaker for this evening will be Ambassador of the State of Israel, Her Excellency, Ms. Yifat Reshef.
Dear Holocaust survivors, dear President of the National Council, dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear Jewish and Christian leaders, dear students and faculty of campus Maurice Stadlen, ladies and gentlemen. This International Holocaust Remembrance Day ceremony is different. When we started working with our Croatian partners on the programs, we focused on the topic chosen for this year, remembrance. It is indeed for me the essence of this day, our shared duty to remember, to never forget, so we can also draw the right lessons in order to ensure that the unimaginable atrocities of the Holocaust can never be repeated. However, on October 7th, the words "never again" received an alarming relevance, with the biggest number of Jews murdered within one single day since the Holocaust. Following the initial shock and worldwide expressions of solidarity, "never again" became "never again is now, nie wieder ist jetzt." The hurting Israelis were to find out soon enough that international organizations and UN institutions established after World War II to prevent the reoccurrence of the catastrophes endured by the Jewish people would not recognize the plight of Israeli citizens nor back the only Jewish state's right to defend itself. As weeks went by, we witnessed orchestrated campaigns and attempts to change public narrative in the same old ways, this time backed by modern means, aimed at concealing, distorting, and negating the truth. From Holocaust denial to massacre denial. Same people, same intentions. The Holocaust was a unique event in the history of mankind, given the monstrous, unprecedented dimensions of the atrocities which took place and their intended and clear goal to destroy and erase the Jewish people in Europe and worldwide. It cannot and should not be compared to any other ordeal suffered by the Jewish people or any other nation. That said, genocidal intentions against Israelis and Jews are alive and kicking, as demonstrated on October 7th by Hamas and its supporters, and in repeated statements made by Iranian officials and other proxies of Tehran in the Middle East. But these are not the 30s. And the Jewish people are not scattered defenseless among the nations anymore. Today, we are blessed with a strong, democratic, and independent state of Israel. We will fight back to defeat our enemies and protect our citizens. We will not sit still when Jewish communities are facing growing anti-Semitism and threats to their safety. We will use our broad diplomatic relations and the excellent bilateral cooperation we have with so many countries to stand together against terror, incitement, and hatred with every possible means. And above all, we will make sure the world never forgets what happened then and what happened now. We will work tirelessly so people understand the importance of remembrance, of history, of facts. We will continue to give voice to survivors and their testimonies, those who are still with us and those who are not. It is our duty to them. It is our duty to our children. It is our way of keeping this world a safer place for all. I wish to express my appreciation to everyone who contributed to today's ceremony. Thank you all for attending, for helping us remember. Never again is now. Am Israel Chai.
Thank you, Ambassador Leshef. Now we will hear a first perspective of our main theme, Mr. Yossi Gvir, Senior Advisor for International Affairs at Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem is the World Holocaust Remembrance Center and is based in Jerusalem. Mr. Gvir will speak about Yad Vashem and the future of Holocaust remembrance. Unfortunately, Mr. Gvir cannot join us today and due to the situation in Israel, and he will deliver a recorded message.
Your Excellency, President of the National Council of Switzerland, my colleague, Her Excellency Ambassador Ifat Weiss, honored Excellencies, beloved Holocaust survivors and their families, dear friends. Shalom from Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center on the Mount of Remembrance in Jerusalem. Thank you for including me in this observance as a representative of Yad Vashem and of our chairman, Dani Dayan, who conveys his warm regards to you all. I'm pre-recording this message because at the exact time at which you will be gathered for this event, I'll be moderating a similar one at Yad Vashem, the annual observance by the Diplomatic Corps posted in Israel of the International Day of Commemoration in remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust. These are only two events out of dozens, I dare say hundreds, of corresponding gatherings and observances conducted around the world at this time of year in accordance with the words and intent of Resolution 60/7 of the United Nations General Assembly. That resolution, adopted in 2005, established International Holocaust Remembrance Day as a time of shared universal identification by all of humanity with the unprecedented ultimate catastrophe of the Jewish people, the systematic murder of approximately 6 million Jews, primarily in Europe, by Nazi Germany and its collaborators as part of the Nazis' strategic plan to eradicate all Jews and all of Jewish civilization throughout the world. A second component of that UN resolution urges member states to develop educational programs to instill the memory of the Shoah in future generations. It is thus apparent that already 20 years ago, indeed from the very end of the Holocaust almost 80 years ago, and even as the horrible events of the Shoah itself were unfolding during World War II, the Jewish victims, the survivors, and their rescuers all sought to ensure the future of remembrance and to instill that remembrance with moral meaning and constructive relevance. Indeed, significant strides have been made over the decades in establishing, widening, and enhancing vital frameworks and activities of Shoah remembrance on local, national, and global levels. Many of the governments, NGOs, and leaderships of the nations represented at your event have taken part in these admirable endeavors. One such major endeavor is IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, in which the governments and content experts of 35 nations are represented. This, of course, includes Switzerland, whose chairmanship of IHRA 7 years ago I well recall. As the co-head of Israel's delegation to IHRA and soon to be chair of its Museums and Memorials Working Group, I am positioned and able to appreciate the strengths and challenges of this important organization. How appropriate that this annual event is held in cooperation with the representatives in Switzerland of the nation that leads IHRA during any given year, with that being Croatia until March 2024. And I take this opportunity to salute Croatia's leadership of IHRA and its invigorated commitment to accurate Holocaust remembrance globally and at home. Dear friends, had we been gathering for this event up to 4 months ago, we, certainly I, would probably have been substantially more optimistic about the current state of Holocaust remembrance and of its closely related field, the fight against contemporary anti-Semitism. Sadly, the shocking, atrocious, and savage terror attacks of Hamas upon southern Israel on October 7th, and the subsequent explosion of virulent anti-Semitism around the world give little current cause for such optimism. More than ever, we now understand that our efforts for accurate historical remembrance have profoundly relevant contemporary implications, and that combating anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism today is an integral and essential part of the legacy of the Shoah. At Yad Vashem, we consistently put that realization into practice. You are all invited to visit Yad Vashem's unique campus in Jerusalem, as well as virtually discover our extensive online presence in order to gain a sense of the scope and impact of Yad Vashem's very varied remembrance resources, programs, and tools. In the time remaining to me now, my colleagues and I would like to share with you a glimpse into one particular such context, one of literally hundreds that Yad Vashem offers. I think that this example well reflects our constructive, dynamic, and multicultural approach to Holocaust remembrance. The following brief video clip conveys precisely the youthful spirit of relevance, hope, love of humanity, and respect for life that we need today. The name of this particular pilot project is My Hero. The video's narrator will explain the project's basis. I'll only add now that since the video was produced, the project has already succeeded in its first experimental year to gain participation of secondary school students, including Christians, Muslims, and Jews from 15 countries in Eastern and Western Europe, in North and South America, and in Australia. The project will surely grow next year and beyond. So will many other initiatives around the world designed to translate the vast and complex story of the Holocaust into meaningful action for the betterment of our world. Thanks so much for your attention, shalom, and warm wishes to you all.
Hi, my name is Sarah from the International School for Holocaust Studies at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. We are very excited to launch a new project called Who is Your Hero, which invites students from all across the world to explore the stories of those who acted heroically during the Holocaust. Let's go inside and find out from some of our colleagues at the Overseas Training and Education Department who their heroes are.
Mi héroe de la Shoah es Bedřich Frita. Él fue artista gráfico checo que fue deportado al gueto Campo Teresín. Él dirigía la parte artística del gueto, tenía que trabajar para los nazis, pero en forma clandestina él dibujaba lo que realmente pasaba en el gueto. A su vez le hizo también un álbum de dibujos a su hijo Tommy, de 3 años, para su cumpleaños. Y ahí le dibujó las cosas que veía fuera del gueto, pero también lo terrible que estaba pasando allí. Porque es mi héroe, por su valentía, por haber hecho en forma clandestina estos dibujos que dejaron documentados lo que pasó y por el legado que nos dejó a nosotros y a su hijo Tommy para el futuro.
Hallo, mein Hero oder Helden sind die Bielski-Brüder, die in den Wäldern von Polen ein Partisanenlager gegründet haben, um Resistenz zu führen, um gegen die Nazis zu kämpfen, aber vor allem mehr als gegen die Nazis zu kämpfen, um Leben zu retten. Leben von Kindern und Frauen und Familien. Und weshalb ich sie auch ausgesucht habe, ist, weil ihr Motto war, lieber das Leben einer alten jüdischen Frau zu retten, als 10 Nazisoldaten zu töten.
Mon héros est Sabine Zlatin. Sabine s'engage dès 1940 à Lezé, l'œuvre de secours aux enfants, et dès 1943 va créer la Maison des Enfants d'Isieux, maison qui sera raflée le 6 avril 1944. Alors pourquoi Sabine est mon héros ? Sabine va œuvrer durant toute la Shoah pour sauver des enfants, mais pas seulement les sauver des griffes des nazis, mais leur donner un quotidien joyeux. Amour, amitié, éducation, c'est ça qui va être le quotidien de ces enfants. Au-delà de ça, Sabine, après la Shoah, va œuvrer pour transmettre cette mémoire, que Isieux soit un lieu de mémoire et d'éducation pour les générations futures.
Moją bohaterką jest Rachela Auerbach, dziennikarka, tłumaczka, pisarka, członkini duszowej elity Polski przedwojennej i należąca do grupy Onek Szebat w getcie warszawskim. Auerbach jest dla mnie wzorcem silnej, ambitnej kobiety, która w dokumentowaniu rzeczywistości Holokaustu znalazła sposób na przetrwanie i reprezentuje dla mnie też postawę bezkompromisowości w kształtowaniu pamięci o Holokauście opartej na relacjach świadków.
And my hero is Lieutenant John L. Withers from Greensboro, North Carolina. He served in a segregated all-black unit with the American Army when they liberated Dachau in Germany. In spite of the racism and prejudice that he himself experienced in his own home country, Lieutenant John Withers displayed enormous amounts of compassion to the Jewish survivors who he had found at Dachau. 2 of them in particular were boys who he took under his wing to protect them and care for them for an entire year after the war. This story touched my heart particularly because it shows the human compassion from one person to another, even when they came from very different backgrounds and had experienced very different things in their lives. Now that you've heard from us, we would like to hear from you. Who is your hero? Please scan the QR code on the screen and we look forward to hearing all the stories that you have to tell.
IRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which unites governments, experts to strengthen and promote Holocaust education, remembrance, and research worldwide. Croatia is this year's chair of IRA. I invite the Ambassador of Croatia, Her Excellency Ms. Andrea Bekic, to the podium.
Esteemed Holocaust survivors and their families, Mr. President of the National Council, Ambassador Reshev, Excellencies, distinguished co-organizers and participants of today's commemoration, Special Advisor to the Croatian Minister of Culture, and in particular, the young generation students from the campus Muristalden. It is my honor to address you today on the occasion of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, representing the country currently chairing IRA, the intergovernmental organization tasked to strengthen, advance, and promote Holocaust education, research, and remembrance. Since our generation is the last to have the opportunity to meet the survivors and witnesses of Holocaust and Shoah, the future of remembrance has been logically the overarching theme of our chairmanship. To remember and protect the facts about the Holocaust is not only a matter of concern for the IRA members, but it is the responsibility of the humanity. When we started planning for this year's commemoration, we could not have imagined the abhorrent attacks against Israel of last 7 October, as well as the shocking rise of anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial or distortion, taking new forms of existence around the world, including in democracies. Indeed, we are living in unprecedented times since the Second World War. The rules-based order and international law are at stake. History and lessons learned from the 20th century are relativized. Therefore, the memory of the victims of Holocaust has to be preserved together with the knowledge of political ideas and events which led to the darkest times of human history. No doubt, the future of remembrance is strongly connected with the best access to the archives and with the preservation of Holocaust sites. Progress in both areas have been achieved, especially during the plenary in Zagreb, when the Charter for Safeguarding Holocaust-related authentic sites was adopted. In that context, I am pleased that we will have the opportunity to listen to the chair of steering board of Jasenovac Memorial Site in Croatia. Jasenovac was the place of immense suffering and massive death in the independent state of Croatia, which existed from 1941 to 1945. It was ruled by the Ustashi regime, imposed on the Croatian people by Hitler, and responsible for introducing racial laws, confiscation of property, deportations, and murderings of Jews, Serbs, Roma, as well as Croats and other nations. The testimonies by late Mrs. Vojka Krečić and Mr. Ivo Jelinek will best describe that period. Republic of Croatia is committed to improve on national level a whole set of issues related to the Holocaust remembrance, combating anti-Semitism, intolerance and racism. The IRA chairmanship served also as catalyst of such improvements, including adoption of 3 definitions of IRA on Semitism, Holocaust denial, and distortion in 2023. We are also developing unique digital platforms about Holocaust and Jewish life in Croatia called iWalk and iWitness in partnership with Shoah Foundation and other initiatives. A lot has been done, but still a lot remains to be achieved as continued work in progress. Together we can do even more. We owe this to the victims. We owe it to the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Bekic. I now invite Ms. Matea Brestilo-Reshetar, Chair of the Steering Board of the Jasenovac Memorial Site in Croatia, to present our second perspective and speak about the Jasenovac Memorial Site and its contribution in preserving the memory of the Holocaust victims.
Thank you very much. Esteemed Holocaust survivors, Your Excellencies, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I will introduce you briefly history of Jasenovac Memorial Site and then planned measures to preserve the site. Maybe lots of you didn't see it or you didn't be there, but this is the main concentration camp in independent states of Croatia. So, brief history. After the capitulation of Kingdom of Yugoslavia and the refusal of the leader of the Croatian Peasant Party to collaborate with the Germans, representatives of the Ustasha movement, with the support of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, proclaimed the fascist puppet independent states of Croatia on April 10 in 1941. Soon after the proclamation of the state, authorities of independent states of Croatia started to establish concentration camps. The largest of them was the Jasenovac concentration camp, set up in August 1941. It was the killing ground for Jews, Roma, Serbs, Croats, Bosnian and Herzegovinian Muslim, Slovenes, and as well as many others who opposed the Ustasha regime. The majority suffered for the simple fact that they belong to a different national, religious, or ethnic group due to idea of a superior race or for holding a different political opinion. Camp inmates were murdered by the Ustasha or left in conditions in which they died exhausted by forced labor, malnutrition, or disease. The Jasenovac camp was in operation until April 22, 1945. On that day, the last inmates broke out of the camp. 101 out of 1,000 who had been in captivity until the last day survived the breakout. After the escape, the Ustasha mined and destroyed the camp buildings, which had previously been damaged and turned down in airstrikes by the Allies or by the partisans, as well as most of the houses in the village of Jasenovac, and retreated towards the west. The first Yugoslav army units entered the area of the abandoned and destroyed camp at the beginning of May of 1945. Research conducted at the Jasenovac Memorial Site so far has come up with a total number of 83,145 victims. Among them, there was 13,116 Jews. But this figure may not be the conclusive number of victims due to the incomplete documentation, destruction of many documents, and inaccessibility of relevant archives. Efforts to preserve the site and commemorate the victims of the tragic events began in the 1950s. The Yugoslav authorities endorsed the design proposal of the Serbian architect Bogdan Bogdanović, whose flower monument was inaugurated in 1966, and the memorial site along with the museum was opened in 1968. Today, the area of the former camp is dominated by the flower monument, and the landscape of the Jasenovac concentration camp is marked with moats and hollows in the ground. During the last Homeland War and the aggression against the Republic of Croatia in 1991 and the occupation of parts of the country, including the area of Jasenovac, the memorial site was heavily damaged. The archives and associated artifacts were seized and transferred to the city of Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina, later occupied by the Serbian forces. And then, after diplomatic efforts, at the end of 2000, temporarily to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, which returned the collection to the Jasenovac Memorial Site in 2001. Current permanent exhibition of the Memorial Museum was opened in 2006, and it is the third in the history of the Jasenovac Memorial. As a member of the IRA, Croatia is committed to safeguarding Holocaust sites of the genocide of the Roma, and the sites related to the crimes of the Nazis and their collaborators. By properly safeguarding sites, we can ensure that they are not used to distort or falsify history, and that they can continue to educate and memorialize for generations to come. Since the ways in which authentic sites are contextualized and have changed over the years, and have the ways how their victims are commemorated, a need was felt at the Jasenovac Memorial Site to introduce improvements in the permanent exhibition and the visualization of the camp's topography. The Croatian Action Plan for the Jasenovac Memorial Site outlines measures that help visitors better contextualize and understand this history. On the initiative of the Croatian IRA presidency and upon the invitation of the Croatian government, an informal ad hoc IRA expert group visits Jasenovac and makes recommendations for how to better contextualize the site's history for visitors. The current initiatives and recommendations of the IRA are aimed at facilitating and improving the work on infrastructure of the memorial, at raising broad social and public approval that will eventually result in the development of a new permanent exhibition, thus fulfilling the institutional mission. So the recommendations are approved and classified into three categories, like short-term goals, medium-term, and long-term goals. Short-term goals, and one on implemented improvement, is the creation of introduction panels outlining the history of the camp, its victims and perpetrators, and two maps that have been added at the site's entrance. One of the maps allows you to understand where the Jasenovac's main camp was in relation to its network of sub-camps. The other shows all Ustaša, fascist, and Nazi camps in the independent states of Croatia. So this is the main entrance in the Jasenovac Memorial Camp, or approach to the museum. So we can go further. So these are two maps. The central map is the map of the main camp and sub-camp of Jasenovac, and the other one on the left is the territory of the independent states of Croatia, on which you see as a visitor, how many camps were on its territory during the Second World War. These panels not only provide basic information, but also visually and physically guide visitors towards the main part of the exhibition through their positioning and orientation. The plan focuses on overcoming the site's functional limitations and introducing contemporary layers of interpretation, commemoration, and musealization, sensitively enriching this delicate landscape as a basis for continuous education and remembering. Another implemented measure includes the creation of a timeline of events related to the camp, which brings more clarity and easier orientation to the current permanent exhibition. The new timeline focuses on events in and around Jasenovac during the period between April 41 and May 45. Located within a main exhibition space in the area where visitors can decide on which direction will start their visit. We are introducing a timeline then provides visitors with a chronological framework of events and guidelines on where certain topics are covered within the exhibition itself. So, the most important short term is integration of a new memorial marker in the interior of the monument, of the flower monument. So, the flower monuments of author Bogdan Bogdanovic, with its historical, artistic, and commemorative value, demands cautious evaluation of any interventions. The initial commemorative approach, centered on poet Ivan Goran Kovacic's verse, is seen as ambiguous and unclear, particularly for new visitors, lacking directness and context. So this is the verse of the poet, Croatian poet Kovačić, and as I said, it's lacking context for the new generation. So we want to introduce a subtle yet distinct modern intervention, well, we suggested with a new direct inscription. This clear, unambiguous message contemplates the original, adding clarity while respecting the initial commemorative strategy. The ring's reminder focuses on facilitating a dignified candle lighting process, fulfilling a need absent in the original commemorative strategy. For the future, we made another short term. It's a content design for interpretative signage and reinterpretation of site, which is really needed for historical context of the whole memorial site. The elements are how to improve the accessibility to the flower monument, how to affirmate new path along the river, and the third, how to put the secondary contemplative path in the landscape part of the site, which is going to lead to the new annex of Memorial Museum. The plan focuses on overcoming the site's functional limitation and introduction contemporary layers of interpretation, commemoration, musealization, sensitively enriching this delicate landscape as a basic for continuous education and remembering. The first of all, as I said, is improvement of accessibility of the original boardwalk. The analysis of the original boardwalk reveals a lacking substructure prone to corrosion and wood decay due to non-existing drainage. The plan includes a solution that improves accessibility to the site. So this is the current state and this is the future. So we need to do that particularly for visitors who come during the colder season, as well as disabled persons, and in keeping with the UE Accessibility Act. Another is a formation of the path along the river, because the Jasenovac concentration camp is on the river Sava. And it needs to be marked more. As you can see, the concentration camps is now like a green grass. You cannot contextualize, you do not know the topography of the memorial site. So the plan includes to put the interpretative panels along the river bank, marking the camp's key elements or topography of the camp. This offers visitors orientation before approaching the boardwalk and monument's central area. The existing train installation is also envisioned as an additional exhibition space, providing more interpretative depth to the visit. So, up is a flower monument. We do not want to make an intervention on the boardwalk, just along the river Osava. So, in keeping with the original idea of the memorial procession as a symbolic and contemplative procession devoid of any explicit narrative explanations, the path along the river provides the visitors with all relevant information about the site, topography, keeping the boardwalk free of any interpretative addition. So, now you can see only the road, and the cars are driving through it. And then what we want to make is the existing road along the river is currently not in any way indicative of its historical importance, or it's usually understood as being an integral part of the memorial site. It is proposed to transform the pavement along the concentration camp area path. This would distinctly designated as a site for further historical interpretation and visitor contemplation. So, it's important to put these panels with original photographs, documentary photos of the camps, so that you can find what elements, where were the barracks, where were the electricity plant, where were the place of murders, mass graves, and so on. And the third is to make a new path which will in the future connect new annex, new building, and new permanent exhibition of Jasenovac's memorial path. This is the final elements of this future plan, which adds a new path along the sites northern perimeter, and it allows a circular route, enhancing the site usability. It offers visitors an additional perspective and contemplative experience. The proposal aims to subtly redefine the surrounding landscape, as it was in the first place, as it was a vision of Bogdan Bogdanovic, not to memorial site itself. This involves accentuating surrounding elements to distinctly contrast with the untouched memorial site. So this is the photo of the author of the monument flower of Bogdan Bogdanovic. Now this is the current state. You see the grass is very green and everything is very simple, but I think that Bogdan Bogdanovic wanted to see this monument flower as a part of the nature, which will give more contemplative feeling to the monument. And the last, what I want to present you is the midterm goals, which we made with our experts, which proposed the following recommendation to the Croatian government. The medium are to support the development of on-site interdisciplinary education for secondary schools, and analysis of the exhibitions, internal review of pre-existing exhibitions, public inquiry of predetermined audiences to evaluate and the permanent exhibition and the memorial site. And the long-term goals, they are aimed at a new permanent exhibition, and the most important is that on the IRO plenary in Zagreb, the most of the experts says that we need to ensure that the permanent exhibition includes perspectives of all victim groups, clearly identifies perpetrators, and it's accessible to a wide range of audiences. So all these plans are made to commemorate and to keep the memory of the victims. So thank you for your time, thank you for patience. I hope that you find something more about the Jasenovac Memorial Site and the plan of Croatian government to make it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brestilo-Vestal. Now we will screen a short testimony of the late Ms. Vojka Krecic, a Croatian Holocaust survivor who lived in Switzerland and passed away last September.
Wenn man nicht in der Situation lebt, ich wüsste nicht, ob man das beurteilen kann. Wenn jemand keine Diktatur durchgemacht hat, kann doch nicht wissen, wie das ist. Damals war Diktatur von Belgrad. Also hat man als zweite Sprache schon in Volksschule Serbokroatisch gelernt. Und dann, als wir nach Zagreb kamen, war eine ganz andere Sprache wieder. Für meine Mutter war ziemlich schwierig das. Ich habe damals noch die Größe von dem Faschismus nicht begriffen. Wir waren alle verraten. Die ganze Familie. Das war das schlimmste Appell, weil da hat man manipuliert. Aber es kann sein, dass plötzlich da eine SS-Patrouille stand und gesagt hat, laufen. Und wenn, also springen, ne? Wer da nicht konnte, war aussortiert. Und gegen wen? Man sollte sich wehren, gegen wen? Diesen einen SS oder wie? Wenn Sie wissen, dass eine Gruppe, die dort und dort steht, jetzt vergast wird. Und das können Sie nicht zeigen. Das ist Gefühl. Sie können darüber sprechen und beschreiben irgendwie, aber das ist ja ein Gefühl. Ich habe am 3. Tag, als die Frage kam von Aussehen, wer ist Laborant? Hand auf. Es war Lüge, aber ich dachte, es kann alles besser sein als das. Wir mussten zu Fuß heraus, evakuiert. Man hat evakuiert, teilweise einfach sukzessive. Wir konnten schlussendlich bis zur Station kommen, von wo Züge waren, weil nachher war alles bombardiert. Und von dort in ein offenes Waggon zu klettern. Und da standen wir dicht an dicht in einem Waggon. Ich weiß nicht wie viele. Ich weiß, dass wir ankamen am Ravensbrück. Da erlebte ich die Befreiung. Ich habe immer spontan gehandelt, so wie es mir in dem Moment richtig erschien.
After this moving testimony, we will now listen to a musical interlude presented by Croatian soprano Miss Nicolina Pinko. She will play and sing Dorme Dorme by Emile Cossetto, a traditional Sephardic song. I now invite the distinguished President of the Swiss National Council, Mr. Eric Nussbaumer, to the podium.
Dear Holocaust survivors, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, how will the Holocaust be remembered in the 21st century? How will the memory of this mass murder be kept alive when the witnesses have disappeared? When the physical traces have faded? According to a report published in 2022 by UNESCO in partnership with the World Jewish Congress, 17% of content on TikTok related to the Holocaust is denial or distortion. This figure rose to 19% on Twitter and peaked at 50% on Telegram. This content stems from anti-Semitic and xenophobic prejudices. It is a threat to democratic values and human rights. This information moves fast, now that everyone can produce and publish their own information. The Holocaust gave rise to the neologism genocide. Unfortunately, there have been other mass killings since that have warranted this label. In fact, the desire to deny our fellow human beings the right to exist seems to be a feature of our shared history. What weapons do we have against this inclination, this capacity for evil? I can think of only one: education. Education to understand our history, to understand our neighbors in their otherness. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the role of institutions to promote education about the Holocaust and to reclaim information in general. As a politician, I well know that this cannot happen without funding. The political class must have the foresight to fund university chairs, museums, information sites with the necessary social media, mediators and specialists. We cannot fight the surge of disinformation without adequate financial resources. We cannot fight against our own savagery without facts to provide a shield and without an understanding of our impulses and cowardice. We all now know that information is power. Now it's up to us to ensure that it is credible, accessible to all, and backed by reliable, independent sources. The stability of our democracies depends on it, so that the past of the witnesses we hear from today will never be our future. Thank you.
Thank you, National Councillor Luspano. Our third perspective for this evening will be presented by Mr. Laurent Sylvie, the President of CICAD in Geneva. Mr. Sylvie will speak about the planning and building of a memorial site in Geneva.
Dear Holocaust survivors, excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know me, which is most of you, I have the privilege to chair CICAD, a non-profit institution that was created the initiative of all French-speaking Jewish communities and dedicated since 1991 to the fight against anti-Semitism, education against prejudice, and Holocaust education. I feel honored and thankful to be able to address this assembly tonight and on such an important occasion. A couple of years ago, the World Jewish Congress, through its UN representative, Léon Saltiel, floated to us, CICAD, the idea of erecting a Shoah memorial in Geneva. At CICAD, we have decades-long experience in working on this very topic, on undertaking what we call in French, le travail de mémoire, remembrance work and studies. We organize survivors' testimonies in classrooms. We travel every year to Auschwitz-Birkenau with over 200 teachers and students for a very emotional and dense study trip. We created and we organized what we call a second generation series of discussions with students, discussions between children of both victims and perpetrators. For over 30 years, CICAD has been at the forefront of a large number of commemorative and educational initiatives in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And yet, when Léon came to talk to us I felt dumbfounded. The idea of such a memorial in Geneva never crossed our minds, but it immediately struck us as evident that such a memorial should be built, and it should not be a discreet undertaking, it should be a very public initiative. Geneva is very much a symbolic city. It's home to the second largest Jewish community in Switzerland. It has a larger border with France than it has with the canton of Vaud, a border which witnessed both the intolerable and the heroic during World War II. It is an international city. It is home to the UN and major supranational institutions. And we realized, doing our research, with a lot of memorials, but none on the shore, at least none on public grounds. Of course, CICAD rallied with the World Jewish Congress around this idea, and we have been since actively involved with the World Jewish Congress in the process of working towards erecting a public Shoah memorial in Geneva, the first of its kind in my region, I believe in most in Switzerland. The city and the canton have both been extremely sympathetic to this project and very active in their participation. A beautiful plot of land has been designated and given by the city and the canton to welcome the memorial in the immediate vicinity of the UN and close to one of Geneva's most celebrated museums. Erecting a public monument is a daunting administrative task, but the goodwill shown by all involved parties has been immensely helpful in clearing hurdles and working towards completion. But after all the bureaucratic, contractual questions come the most difficult and the most intricate. In particular, two questions. What function should a memorial serve? And should it be a work of art? These are all difficult questions, but essential. And once you have land authorizations and hope you're getting the budget, you suddenly feel the weight of the immensity of the task fall on your shoulders. Your responsibility towards the public at large, towards your educational goals, your responsibility towards history, towards your own family exterminated in Auschwitz. A memorial should not only be a reminder of the past. If it pays homage to those who have disappeared, it must talk to the living. If it remembers the past, it must look resolutely at the future. A memorial should be in permanent dialogue between history and future. A memorial must be conceived so that it allows moments of reflection and an opportunity for education. A memorial must both inspire awe and invite you to explore history, educate and fight against the cancer of Holocaust denial. It must itself travel through time and be as relevant in decades as it is today, and it is not an easy endeavor. So, brings us to the other question, should it be a work of art? Or should it just be a simple monument? In Geneva, the steering committee has decided that the memorial must be conceived by an artist with an intimate relationship with the subject. We strongly believe that an artist possesses the ability to create such a place for reflection, homage, remembrance, and education. We believe in the universal language of art, on its ability to transcend and speak to the souls, to create a landmark. We are very conscious of our responsibility in this undertaking, and we feel so proud to work for the completion of Geneva's Shoah Memorial. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvie. I now invite the President of the Swiss Federation of Jewish Communities, Dr. Ralph Levin, to the podium.
Liebe Holocaust-Überlebende und ihre Nachkommen, Herr Nationalratspräsident, Exzellenzen, Quod Herr Rabbanim, liebe Lehrerschaft, Schülerinnen und Schüler des Campus Muristalden, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Wir sprechen heute über die Zukunft der Holocaust-Erinnerung im 21. Jahrhundert. Dieses wichtige Anliegen müssen wir leider auch im Lichte der unfassbaren, schrecklichen Ereignisse des vergangenen 7. Oktobers in Israel betrachten. Dieses Datum hat für die Menschen in Israel ebenso wie für uns Jüdinnen und Juden in der Diaspora und viele andere alles verändert. Die Bilder und Berichte von den bestialischen Ermordungen, von den vergewaltigten Frauen und von den nach Gaza verschleppten Geiseln, darunter viele Kinder, die bis heute in den Fängen der Hamas sind kaum auszuhalten. Wir haben es schon gehört, mit dem größten Massaker, der größte Zahl von Opfern von Jüdinnen und Juden seit der Shoah an einem Tag zu tun. Viele von uns, deren Familiengeschichten von der Shoah geprägt sind und die erlebte oder vererbte Traumata haben, wurden durch die Ereignisse des 7. Oktobers und seiner Folgen retraumatisiert. Es musste Raum gegeben werden für die Trauer, die Wut, die Fassungslosigkeit und auch die Angst. Aber wir haben eine große Pflicht, die Pflicht hinzuschauen und laut zu sein, die Täter und die Gräuel zu benennen und alles dafür zu tun, dass die Geiseln wieder freigelassen werden. Wir haben die Pflicht aufzuklären und wir dürfen Fake News keinen Platz geben. Dies gilt für die Geschehnisse des 7. Oktobers und für den Antisemitismus, der sich wieder erschreckend klar und deutlich überall manifestiert, auch bei uns in der Schweiz. Diese Pflicht gilt genauso und selbstverständlich und deswegen sind wir heute hier, wenn wir von der Shoah sprechen. Wir haben die Verantwortung, die Geschichte weiterzugeben und dabei die Fakten zu beschützen. Das ist auch einer der Gründe, weshalb sich der SIG zusammen mit anderen Organisationen stark macht für die Errichtung eines nationalen Erinnerungsortes, eines Schweizer Memorials für die Opfer des Nationalsozialismus, das in der Stadt Bern entstehen soll. Wir sind zuversichtlich, dass wir mit dem Engagement des Bundes und der Stadt Bern entscheidende Schritte nach vorne werden machen können, aber ich erlaube mir die Bemerkung, und da nehme ich auch auf, was mein Vorredner gesagt hat, es sind ganz schwierige Aufgaben und es werden dort noch sehr, sehr viele Aufgaben zu lösen sein. Besonders wichtig ist für uns die Vermittlung der Geschichte an die junge Generation und die Bildungsarbeit. Deshalb finden wir es ausgezeichnet, dass die heutige Feier wiederum in einer Schule stattfindet. Viele jüngere Menschen, natürlich auch noch viel mehr ältere, kennen die Geschichte der Schweiz während des Zweiten Weltkrieges kaum. Sie sind sich zum Beispiel nicht bewusst, welche Rolle die Schweiz als Drehscheibe beim Goldhandel spielte, beim Warentransit zwischen den Achsenmächten oder gar bei Waffenverkäufen an Nazi-Deutschland. Auch die Bedeutung, die den Schweizer Grenzen während des Krieges zukam, kennen nicht alle. Sie boten oft Schutz, aber verhinderten leider oft das Überleben, denn viele Flüchtlinge wurden hartherzig abgewiesen. Und wer entschied über Leben und Tod? Glücklicherweise gab es auch Menschen, die mit ihrer Zivilcourage politischen Entscheiden aus Bern zuwiderhandelten. Auch solche Geschichten dürfen nicht vergessen gehen, müssen zurück ins Bewusstsein der Menschen. Auch dabei hat ein Schweizer Memorial, wie es für Bern in Planung ist, eine bedeutende Aufgabe. Dieses wird man zudem unbedingt mit dem grenzüberschreitenden Vermittlungsprojekt in St. Gallen am Rhein verbinden müssen. Dort, wo direkt am Ort des Geschehens die damaligen Fluchtgeschichten unmittelbar begreifbar werden, so wie übrigens auch an anderen Grenzorten der Schweiz. In einem weiteren Schritt muss Dann eine Vernetzung mit den bestehenden Gedenkorten, Erinnerungsorten in der ganzen Schweiz geschehen, damit die Vermittlung überall im Land stattfinden kann. Die Schweiz braucht ein offizielles Memorial, davon sind wir überzeugt. Wir hoffen dabei auch auf Ihre Unterstützung. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit.
Our next speaker will be Mr. Ivo Jelinek, who will share his testimony. Mr. Jelinek was born in Zagreb in 1947 and is now living in Geneva. He is the son of the late Croatian Holocaust survivor, Ms. Žuži Jelinek.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is my pleasure and honor to have the opportunity on this occasion to say a few words about the difficult times that Jewish people, including my family, were forced to go through only because they were Jewish. Today, about 80 years later, the current situation begins to resemble those tough times. Never again seems to be happening again, just around the corner, in front of our eyes, wide open. As a son of Holocaust survivors from Croatia, I believe the events like this one are more important than ever. Too many around the world decide to turn a blind eye on anti-Semitism on campuses and on our streets, or worse, to fully endorse it. This cannot be tolerated if we sincerely believe in the promise made to those that survived the Shoah. Recently, the presidents of 3 leading US universities were questioned by the US Congress Commission investigating the tremendous rise of anti-Semitism and Jew hate behavior in their schools. Calling for the genocide of Jews is against the policy of their institutions, but only based on context, they stated, meaning it is not that bad and certainly not prohibited. Just 3 days ago at Leicester Square in the middle of London, 3 young people were almost lynched by a hostile Arab mob because they spoke Hebrew. The police failed to intervene. And so on, multiplied by thousands in the US, Western Europe, and elsewhere. My friends and myself find this unbelievable, and the call to arms is forthcoming. Now back to our main topic. I was a kid from an Austro-Hungarian family. My grandparents came from Bosnia, originating from Prague, Austria, northern Croatia, and Budapest. My grandfather Juro graduated from medical school in Vienna in 1910, the same year my father was born, and became one of the leading dentists in Zagreb between the wars. As a young woman, my mother Žuži Jelinek opened haute couture business in Zagreb just before the war. She was looking for a handsome, eligible man from a respectable Jewish family, and along came my father, Erich Jelinek, who filled that description. He went to medical school in Berlin, but in 1933, when Hitler came to power, he had to leave, but was able to continue in Basel, next door. After graduating in Switzerland, he returned to Zagreb, where my family's fate was sealed. Jewish life in Zagreb was rich and well developed. Among 12,000 Jews, 5% of population, there was a significant number of skilled and famous people who left lasting traces. Jewish community was well integrated and contributed significantly toward general development during decades, despite the presence of the Austro-Hungarian relatively mild type of anti-Semitism. All of this quickly and finally disappeared after the Nazis brought a Quisling regime to power on April 10, 1941. At that moment, with the introduction of racist laws, the run for survival began. Only 20% of the Jewish population of ex-Yugoslavia made it. My mother immediately obtained false papers and went by train with her fresh husband, his parents, and a few valuables that they could hide to the Croatian-Italian border, which they had to cross on foot during a big storm. Italy had control of that coastal parts of Croatia, and that saved their lives. Meantime, in Zagreb, the situation for the Jews and of course some other groups became catastrophic. My older uncle Imre, 27 years old, economist, was together with some other young men, Jews, Serbs, and Croatian communists, executed in Dubrava forest, part of Zagreb. My younger uncle, Istvan, or Ivo, 19, was one of many young people assembled by Ustašis at the Građanski football stadium in Maksimir. When they ordered the Jews to step forward, everybody did so, the Jews and the non-Jews. This fantastic event did not prevent the assassins to ship all the Jewish youth to Lika, where they were slaughtered and thrown into deep pits. When my mother heard the shocking fate of her two brothers, she decided to try to save her parents who were still in Zagreb. She went to Italian chief of police in Rijeka, told him the whole story, and helped by the good looks and a few tears, she obtained documents saying that she was the wife of a high-ranking Italian officer. As such, and elegantly dressed, there was no problem to return to occupied Zagreb. When she entered the apartment, they were all crying. All this because they thought that the police had come for them, and my mother to see them still alive. As for my father's younger brother, Hansi, he did not want to study, and therefore in 1938, my grandfather bought him a one-way ticket for the ship Trieste-Haifa. So he made the Aliyah. He wanted his girlfriend Miriam from Varaždin to join him in Palestine, which was easier said than done. In early 1941, there were barges on the Danube River taking the Jews to the Black Sea and over Turkey to Eretz Israel. Miriam was lucky to take the last one that passed through. The next one was stopped by the Germans, and a few hundred passengers were taken to Sajmište, a part of Belgrade where they were all liquidated. The family of Hansi, in Hebrew Yohanan ben Tzvi, who now reposes at Kibbutz Yiftach on the northern border, has grown to over 25 members, a happy ending. The brother of Miriam, who was a Vienna-educated textile engineer, managed a well-known silk factory in Varaždin. The Ustašis killed him early on. His pregnant widow gave birth to a baby boy in a hospital in Zagreb in 1942. They had around 30 other Jewish mothers with their babies that they smuggled through the windows by good and courageous people to be saved from the Ustašis. They went back to Varaždin, but the young mother Zdenka was betrayed and she finished in the Jasenovac death camp. I saw the postcard mailed from Zagreb railway station asking good people to stay to save her baby. I couldn't contain my tears. And the good people indeed took the two Jewish babies on bikes hidden among geese and brought them to a nearby village where they played with other Christian kids until the end of the war. The whole village protected them. After the war, Miriam's nephew was taken to Israel and eventually became one of the leading sociologists in the country. He had 3 sons, all taller than me. Well, I'm not very tall. And all officers of the IDF. Nice story. A film was made on his life by Yasmin Kadomash. Today, the baby is 82, and his name is Yair Palgi. I'm currently trying with Yad Vashem to name the 3 concerned doctors at Petrova Hospital, the rightest among the nations, but it goes very slow, if at all. Too bad the guy that spoke here is not here, you know. Let me come back to our main topic. I apologize for my repeated drifting away. My family enjoyed a comfortable life in emigration until mid-43, when all changed since Mussolini's Italy capitulated and the Germans with Eustachis took over the coastal regions. The neighbors came one evening and said that they had to leave at once. So again they were on the move, this time by foot over the mountains into Lika region to join the partisans. Her parents joined them a bit later. Since my father was a medical doctor, he received the rank of captain and joined the mobile hospital. In order not to be separated, they said my mother was his assistant. But conditions in the field were more than rough, often on the move, in permanent risk of ambush, illnesses, hunger, cold winters, miserable supplies, but as a majority they survived these 3 tough years. On 8 May 45, Zagreb was finally liberated. Their lives were saved and a new era began. My mother got into Zagreb on that day with the 1st Proletarian Brigade under the command of Kocha Popovic, dressed in a uniform that she made herself from parachute material. Jewish life, however, was utterly destroyed in all of ex-Yugoslavia, like everywhere else. 1/2 of those who miraculously survived immigrated to Israel in the late 40s, while my parents decided to stay behind. I was born in 47, as this young gentleman said, did not know what a Jew meant since nobody spoke about that. My parents mentioning their stories very rarely. But honestly, the anti-Semitism then and up until now in Croatia was practically inexistent. My father had his own private dental practice and was a professor in dental medicine at the university. He died in 2003 at the age of 93. My mother opened again a haute couture shop and was quite successful. She made models and traveled around the world in the 60s, had fashion shows in New York, Hollywood, Tokyo, Delhi, etc. She was on TV presenting fashion from behind the Iron Curtain, even though luckily Yugoslavia was not part of it. She was called the Dior of Yugoslavia, engaging the top US models at the time. When asked why she traveled 3rd class on the Queen Mary sailing over the Atlantic, she responded because there was no 4th class. But after having sold all her models, she was returning in the 1st class. Zuzi was quite often in the papers and on TV. Everybody knew her Jewish origin and her history. Later in her life, she wrote a dozen books on fashion and as well as human relations. She was called Dr. Ruth of Croatia. The name Zuzi became a household name, and even today, precisely 8 years after her death at the age of 99, most people know who she was and what kind of jokes and advice she was giving freely in public. Myself, after having graduated mechanical engineering in Zagreb, I went to Montreal for an MBA degree at McGill. With the sizable Jewish community there, I started to pick up the basics of Judaism. In '76, I got married, like most of us did, to a good-looking young attorney at law. Miraculously, our marriage is still working fine. Due to the base my mother established in Switzerland, we moved to Geneva in '78, and here we are 45 years later. Since then, I have been a member of the committee of the main Jewish community in Geneva, CIG, and the president of Maccabi Geneva for 10 years. I also participated in 12 Maccabiade games in Israel and Europe for the Swiss basketball and tennis teams. Now, growing old, I have the privilege of sharing the story of my family and myself with you nice people. Hoping this was not too long and too boring, wishing you all the best, and that we as a Jewish nation with our friends once again overcome victoriously the difficult times as we did on many occasions in the past. God bless you and shalom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jelinek. After this moving testimony, we will now have another musical interlude by Miss Nicolina Pinko, who will play and sing Ken Bakodesh, a traditional East European Jewish song. I invite the Ambassador of Germany, His Excellency Mr. Michael Pfluger, to the podium.
Sehr verehrte Holocaust-Überlebende und Angehörige, Exzellenzen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, und ich kann es kaum sehen, da hinten jetzt gegen das Licht, liebe Schülerinnen und Schüler des Muri-Stalden Campus. Diese Veranstaltung richtet sich hauptsächlich an euch, denn ihr seid die Zukunft des Holocaust-Gedenkens. Lassen Sie mich mit einem Zitat beginnen. Ihr seid nicht verantwortlich für das, was geschah. Aber dass es nicht wieder geschieht, dafür schon. Diese Botschaft verbreitete der Shoah-Überlebende Max Mannheimer an deutschen Schulen, um auch die nachkommenden Generationen über die Shoah aufzuklären. Auch 79 Jahre nach der Befreiung des Konzentrationslagers Auschwitz erinnern wir uns an die Gräueltaten Nazi-Deutschlands und bleiben unnachgiebig in unserem Kampf gegen jegliche Form von Diskriminierung und Unterdrückung. Die Shoah war ein beispielloser Akt des Antisemitismus, der uns eine klare Verantwortung auferlegt, der Opfer der Shoah zu gedenken und gegen jegliche Form von Hass und Diskriminierung einzustehen. Genau das ist gerade vor dem Hintergrund der aktuellen Geschehnisse, der Überfall auf Israel am 7. Oktober wurde hier mehrfach erwähnt, und der steigenden Anzahl antisemitischer Vorfälle und Straftaten von herausragender Bedeutung. Jüdische Menschen und Einrichtungen werden immer häufiger Ziel von Hass und Gewalt, auch in meinem Land. Zur Bekämpfung des Antisemitismus in der deutschen Gesellschaft ist es entscheidend, nicht nur repressiv, sondern vor allem präventiv durch Aufklärung tätig zu werden. Indem wir uns mit der Vergangenheit auseinandersetzen, können wir sie besser verstehen, wie Antisemitismus entsteht und ihn wirksamer bekämpfen. Es muss aber auch die heutige Lebensrealität von Jüdinnen und Juden in Deutschland wahrgenommen werden. Die Herausforderungen und Diskriminierungen, mit denen sie im Alltag konfrontiert werden, muss offengelegt und erkannt werden. Nur so kann man Antisemitismus etwas entgegenhalten und ihn bekämpfen. Wie können wir die Erinnerung an die schrecklichen Taten bewahren, um ein Bewusstsein für die grausame Geschichte zu schaffen? Mehrere Ansätze sind hier heute in den Reden schon genannt worden. Leider können uns nur noch wenige Zeitzeugen ihre furchtbaren Ereignisse unter den Nazis aus erster Hand nahebringen. Umso wichtiger sind Gedenkstätten, wie das hier erwähnt wurde, Lehrveranstaltungen und Museen, aber auch der Unterricht in Schulen, um die jüdische Geschichte in ihrer Vielfalt aufzuzeigen, an die Verfolgung jüdischen Lebens zu erinnern und unnachgiebig auf das unfassbare Leid aufmerksam zu machen. Wir schulden es unseren eigenen Werten, Toleranz, Respekt und Vielfalt, die unsere Demokratie ausmachen, für jüdisches Leben einzustehen und Antisemitismus zu bekämpfen. Das ist die Aufgabe der gesamten Gesellschaft und eines jeden Einzelnen von uns. Ich verneige mich hier vor den Holocaust-Überlebenden und I join Ifat in saying, nie wieder ist jetzt. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Ambassador Pfluger. I invite Deputy Ambassador of the United States of America, Mr. Branford Bell, to the podium.
Dear Holocaust survivors, distinguished guests, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and the students, I'm honored to be here today to commemorate International Holocaust Remembrance Day on behalf of the U.S. Embassy and our Ambassador, Scott Miller. Each year we come together to honor the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust and those that survived and ensure that their memories and their stories live on. This year, the commemoration is particularly significant as we reflect on the horrific terrorist attacks of October 7th in Israel, the most lethal assault against Jews since the Holocaust. We also remember the more than 130 hostages, including 6 Americans, who are still being held captive. We grieve with all who continue to suffer during this conflict. And tragically, since the October 7th attacks, we have seen an alarming increase in anti-Semitism globally, including both in the United States and here as well in Switzerland. The second gentleman of the United States, Doug Emhoff, underscored this just last week when he visited Switzerland, saying, "Jews cannot fight this hate alone. There is a lot of work for all of us to do. We must uniformly confront that those to seek to exploit Jewish hate online in an attempt to undermine our most cherished values, democracy, diversity, and a respect for human rights." It is our responsibility to push back on hatred in all forms and to educate ourselves and the coming generations about the Holocaust, to demonstrate solidarity and make clear that anti-Semitism has no place in this world. Last year, the Biden-Harris administration released the first ever U.S. national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, to raise awareness about anti-Semitism and its threat to American democracy. We must always and everywhere give voice to our values. We celebrate and honor our diversity and condemn the intolerance in all its forms. And so, as President Biden said, we cannot redeem the past, but as we mourn humanity's capacity to inflict inhuman cruelty, let us commit to making a better future and to always upholding the fundamental values of justice, equality, and diversity that strengthen our free societies. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Ambassador Bill. We will now conclude our commemoration ceremony with a prayer in remembrance of the Holocaust victims, Kaddish, read by Rabbi Arens.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברך ויותי ואביך מלכותי, וחי יכון ויום יכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יש שמי רבה מברך לעם ולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקדושה ובריחו. לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Thank you, Rabbi Allens. Yehi zichram baruch. Thank you all for your participation. Todah and shalom.